My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm about to share a story that has haunted me for years. It's not easy to speak about this, but perhaps by sharing it, I can help others avoid the same mistakes I made. I grew up in a small coastal town in Maine, where the lighthouse's beams swept across our windows each night like a guardian angel's watchful eye. Our house sat perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, where the waves crashed against the rocks in an endless rhythm that became the soundtrack of my childhood. My father, David, was a respected marine biologist at the local research center. His work involved studying the migration patterns of whales, and he would often take me out on his research vessel. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair that seemed to catch the sunlight just right, and eyes as deep and mysterious as the ocean he loved so much. Despite being in his late 40s, he maintained the physique of someone much younger, thanks to the physical nature of his work. My mother, Rachel, owned a small bookstore in town. She was gentle and kind, with a passion for poetry that she passed down to me. Every evening she would read to me from her favorite collections, her voice soft and melodious like the whisper of waves on the shore. We were the perfect family, or so everyone thought. I was their only child, and they poured all their love and attention into raising me. Perhaps that was part of the problem. I was too loved, too protected, too close. From an early age, I developed a special bond with my father. He was my hero, my protector, the man who taught me about the mysteries of the sea and the wonders of the natural world. When I was little, I would wait by the window each evening, watching for his research vessel to return to the harbor. As soon as I spotted it, I would race down to the docks, jumping into his arms as soon as he stepped onto the pier. The smell of salt water and his weathered jacket became my comfort zone. Even as I grew older, into my teenage years, I maintained that physical closeness with him. While other girls my age were pulling away from their parents, I still sought out his hugs, still curled up next to him during movie nights, still reached for his hand when we walked along the beach. I was 17 when things began to change. It was subtle at first, so subtle that I almost didn't notice. The way his hand would linger a moment too long when he touched my shoulder, the way his eyes would follow me across a room, the way our hugs became charged with something I couldn't or wouldn't name. One particular evening stands out in my memory. Mom was away at a book convention in Boston, and Dad and I were alone in the house. He had just returned from a 2-week research expedition, and I had missed him terribly. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, when he suggested we have dinner on the deck. He had prepared my favorite seafood pasta, and there was a bottle of wine on the table. "You're old enough for a glass now," he said with a smile that made my heart flutter in a way it shouldn't have. We ate and talked as the stars began to appear above us, sharing the wine and stories of his time at sea. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was the way the moonlight silvered his hair. But something shifted that night. Our conversations became more intimate, our glances held longer, and the space between us seemed to crackle with electricity. "Dance with me," he said suddenly, pulling up a slow song on his phone. We swayed together under the stars, and I could feel his heartbeat against my cheek. When I looked up at him, his eyes were different, darker, deeper, full of something I recognized but didn't want to name. That was the night everything changed. The night we crossed a line that should never have been crossed. The night our family began its slow, inevitable descent into destruction. What followed was a period of secret meetings, stolen moments, and lies that grew bigger and more complex with each passing day. We told ourselves it was love, that we were special, different. We convinced ourselves that the rules didn't apply to us, but they did. They always do. The day my mother found out was the day our world imploded. She came home early from a business trip, walking in on a moment that destroyed everything she believed in. The look in her eyes, I'll never forget it. It wasn't just anger or betrayal. It was the death of something fundamental, the shattering of her entire reality. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just turned around and walked out, taking with her every shred of normalcy we had ever known. The divorce was quick and quiet. Small towns have a way of knowing things without being told. And soon we were the subject of whispered conversations and averted eyes. My father lost his position at the research center. My mother sold the bookstore and moved to Portland. And I was left standing in the ruins of what had once been a perfect family, trying to understand how we had fallen so far. Now, years later, as I sit here sharing this story, I want to speak directly to anyone who might be experiencing something similar. Maybe you're feeling confused about the boundaries in your relationships. Maybe you're telling yourself that your situation is different, special, unique. It's not. The boundaries that exist in families aren't arbitrary rules. They're protective barriers that keep us safe, that allow love to flourish in its proper form. When we break them, we don't just damage relationships. We destroy the very foundation of trust that families are built on. To those who might be standing at the edge of that line, contemplating taking that first step across, stop, step back. Remember that some decisions can never be undone, some damage can never be repaired. The momentary pleasure or excitement isn't worth the lifetime of regret and pain that follows. I haven't spoken to my mother in 5 years. My father lives alone now, in a small apartment overlooking the same ocean that once brought us so much joy. Sometimes I see him walking along the beach, but we don't acknowledge each other. The guilt and shame are too heavy, the memories too painful. I'm sharing this story not to seek sympathy or understanding, but as a warning, as a reminder that love, while powerful and beautiful, must exist within proper boundaries to remain healthy. When we blur those lines, when we let our emotions override our judgment, we risk destroying not just ourselves, but everyone around us. To those reading this, I ask, have you ever felt confused about the boundaries in your relationships? Have you ever justified crossing lines because you felt your situation was different? I want you to think carefully about these questions because your answers could be the difference between maintaining healthy relationships and destroying them forever. Remember that family love should be protective, nurturing, and safe. It should build you up, not tear you down. It should make you feel secure, not confused or ashamed. If you're experiencing feelings that seem to cross these boundaries, please seek help. Talk to a counselor, a trusted friend, or a mental health professional. Don't make the mistakes I made. Don't tell yourself that your situation is different, that you can handle it, that love makes it okay. It doesn't. It never does. Looking back now, I can see all the warning signs I chose to ignore. The way our relationship gradually shifted from normal father-daughter affection to something more intense. The secretive behavior. The justifications we made to ourselves. If I could go back, I would stop it all before it began. But we can't go back. We can only go forward, carrying our lessons with us and hoping to prevent others from making the same mistakes. Today, I work as a counselor, helping others navigate complex family dynamics and maintain healthy boundaries. Every day, I see the importance of maintaining clear lines in relationships, of understanding the difference between healthy love and dangerous attraction. To anyone reading this who might be struggling with similar feelings or situations, please know that you're not alone. There are people who can help you, who can guide you back to healthy relationships and proper boundaries. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let yourself be drawn into a situation that will destroy everything you hold dear. And to those who might judge my story harshly, I understand. I judge it harshly myself. But I share it because I believe that sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most painful mistakes. The ocean still crashes against the rocks outside my window, but its song is different now. It reminds me not of the comfort of childhood, but of the importance of boundaries, of the power of choices, and of the devastating consequences that can come from crossing lines that should never be crossed. If this story reaches just one person and helps them step back from a similar situation, then sharing my pain will have been worth it, because in the end, that's all we can do with our mistakes. Use them to help others avoid the same path. Remember, love is beautiful, but it must exist within proper boundaries to remain healthy. Don't let momentary emotions destroy what should be sacred. Keep the lines clear, the boundaries firm, and the relationships pure. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been touched by it or have thoughts to share, please reach out. Sometimes the most healing conversations start with the simple act of sharing our stories, no matter how painful they might be. And always remember, some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. Choose wisely, love properly, and keep your boundaries strong. How does this story make you feel? Have you ever faced situations where boundaries became unclear? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences, always maintaining appropriate boundaries in our discussion.